नहीं, at the last you weren't काफ़ी side पे हुए थे. अच्छा, I had a question. You said that quantum computers aren't very useful for everyday tasks. Is it because there's a problem in the system, or just because they don't want to do that?
No, it's an inherent issue. It's not that technology will make them better. It's just that they're simply not designed for certain things that we do in our everyday lives.
Is it because they're made to be used for important stuff?
Not
Is it
necessarily important, but of a certain nature of complexity. Like for example, I can give you an example. Let's say you want to plan the seating for dinner guests, right? You have a bunch of tables and you want to figure out, okay, which person should sit with which person, right? Now, if you have, let's say, 5 dinner guests, that's easy. You can do it by hand, you can do it by computer. If you ramp up the number of guests, if you have 20, 30 guests, the permutations increase so quickly and at an exponential rate that it becomes unfeasible to do it using classical means. So that's where you kind of leverage the use of your superposition concept. In fact, one way to think of the rover algorithm that I went over, I'm not sure how clearly I was able to convey it. One interpretation for how it manages to speed things up is if you take seriously the what was it called? The multiple words. I'm sorry, the word escapes me from my mind.
Multiverse?
Many words. So if you take seriously the many words interpretation of quantum mechanics, you're basically harnessing the power of multiple universes to do your computation for you. If you want something that sounds really fancy.
Okay.
Done? Thank you.
Okay, next question please. Sayed.
So it's all about coding, right?
Yeah. Coding.
So what if I came up with some algorithm of like that I have generated, and like if it's just the coding, it's just the modern coding.
It's beneath the coding, the hardware that does the calculation. That's the thing that we're dealing with, and that hardware is able to leverage certain new kinds of codes as well. So if you want to get into the electronics of it, you know how there are logic gates, there are classical logic gates. Similarly, there are quantum logic gates. So it's a hardware issue.
Danial, I have a question. Have you explored the threats current bank is facing as a result of advances in quantum computing?
Come again, I don't understand.
I'm saying that can you explore the threats that current bank is facing as a result of advances in quantum computing technologies, especially as this is protocol and this is method we are using?
I am still not clear on your question.
Especially loud and slow.
I'm saying that have you explored
Explored?
the threats current web, which is Web 2.0, is facing as a result of advances in quantum computing technologies?
Well, I
Main
don't.
focus is encryption mechanisms and encryption protocols.
Well, right. The threat is.
Daniel, can you repeat the question for us?
Have I explored the threats to Web 2.0 from
Current web
current web?
was used.
Basically, threats arising due to quantum computing. I think that's the
Yes.
part of the question. And the issue is, well, there are threats from quantum computing because it's what's the word? It's an arms race, basically. When you have various rival nations across the world and they're trying to hold their information secret. Of course, if a rival nation if North Korea were to somehow come up with a quantum computer and steal all the nuclear launch codes of the US, that would obviously be a huge problem. So yes, everyone is racing to kind of be the first to secure their data. So yes, there is a lot of threat. I'm not quite sure what you mean by Web 2.0. I'm not up to date.
Web 2.0 is the web that we mostly use
with encryption, with basically keeping your passwords private, for example, cracking the encryption code, that's something that quantum computers are exceptionally good at. So yes, that is an issue.
So class? No question? Okay, Daniel, how do we visualize this quantum computer? Like you just talked about a quantum logic gate. What will a quantum logic gate be like?
It's a tiny little thing, it's like a transistor on a chip.
What is it made of?
It's made up of, basically, because we're dealing with electrons and their spins, so it's like a circuit. It's a standard circuit. The hardware is the the standard
The
electronics.
standard motherboard looks similar to
Yes.
the motherboards we have.
Yes. It's obviously there are the restraints. There are constraints about how big it can be and how long it can operate because of the decoherence and the issues with keeping it cool and that sort of thing. But physically, yes, there are. IBM has their quantum computer. It is it exists, and they've opened it up for anyone who wants to go and explore it. So they exist, and they're quite large. I know that for a fact. So they're
Large means
like the way supercomputers are like stacks and stacks of CPUs. So quantum computers are similar, I believe.
I'm not so sure.
Okay.
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I haven't quite thought about the size of it, but
No, not just the size. I'm thinking about will the motherboards be the same? Will is the whole idea? I think it's a whole different idea. Are we going to have the same diverse transistors and the same kind of
I think it will be different. Maybe perhaps they were using gold in quantum computing.
materials will be different. I think the whole idea is. I'm not sure. You can explore this. What will it look like? What is it actually? What are you doing? आप क्या चीज़ है? Like इसमें क्या है? इसमें you have certain factors, right? And then you have these doping, and then the doping led to the development of the p-n junction. The p-n junction led to the development of the transistor. And again, these were the steps we had to achieve the chip that we have today. Is this the same? No, I don't think so.
I have to
वो
look into it.
qubits कैसे बन रहे हैं? What's the physical nature of those qubits? Okay, you showed us the maths. That's great. Actually, qubits हैं क्या चीज़?
I guess particles that you
I
place
don't
into.
know. अब मुझे इसका I'm not